The Montana mountains had a way of swallowing sound whole. In summer, wind threaded through the pines like a slow breath, and in winter the silence thickened until even the trees seemed to hold still. When Lucas Vale stepped out of his cabin that first morning, coffee steaming in one hand, he noticed the silence immediately. It was deeper than usual, almost attentive, as though the forest itself was waiting for him to take the next step. But that wasn't what stopped him. It was the footprints. They stretched out across the snow in a neat pattern, two sets running parallel, beginning just beyond the wooden porch and extending all the way across the clearing toward the tree line. The powdery snow preserved every detail with eerie precision. Heel. Arch toe marks. A faint drag of the right foot, like a man favoring one knee. Lucas's knee. He stared at the prints for a long moment, squinting at the early morning frost. The first set of footprints were clearly his boots, his stride length, his slight limp from the old car accident 3 years ago. But the second set, they were his too. Identical. Same boot treads. Same limp. Same stride. Same turning pattern in the snow, both sets angling toward the forest. Lucas blinked, then laughed under his breath, shaking off a crawl of unease. "Nope," he muttered. "Not today. I'm not starting my morning with hallucinations." The cabin sat on a slope carved from old logging land. The nearest neighbor was a tract 40 minutes away by dirt road. Snow this time of year piled high like white walls along the valley edges. No mail service. No passerby. No tourists willing to freeze for a view. No one should have been here. Lucas knelt near the edge of the first footprint, brushing a glove against the impression. Sharp edges. Not distorted. Not melted. Fresh. Then he noticed something worse. Both sets of footprints, his and the other identical pair, did not lead to the house. They led away from it. He stood slowly. There were no incoming prints on the porch. No marks of someone approaching. No snow disturbed near the steps. It was as if he had walked out of the cabin twice, once as himself, and once as... "Well," Lucas whispered, "someone else wearing my boots." He decided two things immediately. He hadn't sleepwalked. He'd never sleepwalked in his life. Someone was playing a prank. But who? The nearest friend he had was a 3-hour drive away. His editor hated mountains. His agent hated cold. And nobody else even knew he had come here. Only Dana had known. His wife. Gone now 2 years. The ache rose and retreated like an old tide in his chest. He exhaled. Stop it. Focus. The wind stirred, brushing snow crystals across the prints like glitter. Lucas followed the path with his eyes. The twin sets of footprints sank deeper as they approached the trees, as though the two people, two versions of one man, had quickened their pace. The forest swallowed the tracks beyond the first line of pines. Lucas took a sip of coffee, warmth coating his throat. He considered calling someone. The sheriff? His friend Russ? His sister who lived in Portland? No. They'd all say the same thing. You're grieving. You're stressed. You're alone in the hills. Come home. He turned back toward the cabin. He froze. His cabin door, shut when he walked out, was now slightly open. Okay, he breathed, heart kicking hard. Not good. He approached slowly, boots crunching on snow. The door hung maybe an inch open, just enough that he could see darkness inside. As he pushed it wider, the hinges groaned. The cabin was exactly as he left it. Fireplace embers still glowing. His laptop open on the table. Dana's old travel mug sitting on the counter beside yesterday's dishes. Nothing out of place. Except the rug by the back window had been moved 2 inches to the left. Lucas stared. He knew how it was supposed to sit, perfectly centered with the window frame. He'd fixed it 1,000 times. Dana used to tease him for being obsessive about that rug. Now it was shifted, clearly moved by a foot or a hand or... What the hell is going on? He scanned the cabin, stomach tightening. Then he saw something worse. By the back window, faint but visible, were melted impressions on the wooden floor, footprints. Dampness from melted snow. Size 11. Same as his. His heart thudded. Someone had been inside. Someone wearing his boots. The rational part of his brain scrambled for explanations. Someone stole his spare boots. An identical pair. With the same wear on the heel. Impossible. Lucas backed away from the prints, grabbing his phone. No signal. Of course not. Mountain valleys were dead zones in winter. He stared again at the shifted rug. Something tugged at his memory. Dana had bought that rug from a flea market in Oregon. She once said the pattern reminded her of an infinite spiral. She joked that the rug made her feel like the cabin had 2 floors. But that was from another time. Another life. Before the accident. He rubbed his forehead. You're losing it, Lucas. Still, the fear wouldn't leave. He checked every closet, room, nook, cabinet, space beneath furniture. Nothing. But tension coiled inside him like a wound spring. When he returned to the front door to shut it, he noticed something he'd missed earlier. On the inside doorknob, next to the metal latch, was a fingerprint. Just one. Clear. Recognizable. It was his fingerprint. Placed at an angle he couldn't physically leave unless he were standing outside the cabin while pushing the door open from the outside. Lucas backed away from the door as if it had burned him. Someone is messing with me, he whispered. Someone who knows me. Someone who knows my hands. My stride. My boots. Dana's journal lay on the bedside table. He picked it up slowly, flipping through familiar handwriting. Dana Vale had been fascinated with strange physical phenomena. Mirrors. Light distortion. Limbic shadows. Time perception. Her notes were half science, half poetry, all obsession. He stopped on a page near the middle. Temporal echo fields exist where trauma and isolation overlap. A person might split, not physically, but chronologically. One version walks forward. The other never leaves. Lucas dropped the journal. His breath wavered. No. Absolutely not. He wasn't split. That was fiction. Theory. The kind of strange thought Dana used to scribble at 3 a.m. But then, why were there 2 sets of his footprints? Why were there movements inside the cabin when he was outside? And why did the other version avoid showing himself? Lucas shook his head violently. Not happening. Not paranormal. Someone is copying me. That's it. He grabbed his coat and stepped outside. Time to follow the prints. The following of the footprints. The wind carried a whisper of ice, stinging his cheeks. The sky was turning a pale gray, sunrise bleeding across the valley. Lucas approached the first set of prints, boots crunching. He crouched again. Boot size, 11. Tread pattern, Vibram sole, same as his. Stride length, his exact pace. Weight distribution, right leg lighter due to his limp. Impossible. Both sets were him. He started following the trail. The snow squeaked with each step. The two sets of prints stayed side by side for the first 10 yards. Then they diverged slightly, his version turning a little outward, the other slightly inward. "That's not how I walk," Lucas muttered. About 20 yards in, both sets began stepping faster. The impressions grew deeper, as if both men had started to run. The tree line approached. He swallowed. The air inside the forest felt different, still, waiting, older. Something about these trees held a presence, like 1,000 years of quiet judgment. Lucas stepped inside. The prints continued. But the light dimmed by half. The sound dampened. Even his own breathing felt absorbed by the air. He kept moving. The trail twisted around pines, skirted a fallen log, and then stopped. Abruptly. Both sets of prints vanished. Not faded, vanished. The last impressions ended clean, sharp-edged, like someone had walked into nothingness. Lucas slowly rotated in place, scanning the natural circular clearing. The snow ahead was untouched. Behind him, untouched. Left. Right. Untouched everywhere. "Where the hell did you go?" he whispered. No wind. No animals. Only the faint crack of settling ice in the branches. Lucas leaned closer to the last footprint, specifically the deeper set, which he assumed belonged to the other him. The snow inside the track wasn't melting. It was sinking. As if something beneath the snow pulled downward. Lucas jolted back. Okay. Okay. Time to leave. He took a few steps back. Then froze. A crack echoed behind him. He turned sharply. Nothing. Then another. He swung around again. Still nothing. Blood drummed in his ears. He exhaled. Breathe. You're not being hunted. You're being. A whisper behind him. Lucas. He spun, slipping in the snow, and saw a shadow move behind a tree. Not a shape. Not a figure. A shadow too large to be human, stretching across the snow in a warped contour like light bending in water. Then, crunch. 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 Footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Approaching. Lucas backed away, panic climbing his throat. "Who's there?" he shouted, voice cracking. "Come out." The footsteps stopped. Silence. The forest held its breath. Then a single boot print formed in the snow 5 feet away. Right in front of him. He gasped. Another boot print formed beside it. No foot. No body. No person. Just prints appearing. One after another. Walking toward him. His boots. His stride. His limp. Lucas stumbled back, lost his balance, fell into the snow. He scrambled, kicking backward like a trapped animal. The invisible footsteps kept advancing, slow and deliberate. "Stop!" Lucas choked out. "Stop!" The footsteps halted. The air thickened. A shape, faint as frost on glass, seemed to shimmer before him, a distortion of the environment, like heat waves rising from a desert road. A man-shaped blur. Lucas stared. The blur leaned forward, its posture mirroring Lucas's own as he lay in the snow. Then the distortion spoke. "Stop following me." Lucas's entire body went still. The shape straightened and pointed at him with an outline of a hand. "This is your warning." Then it vanished. The air snapped back to normal. The forest sound returned. Lucas sat in the snow, shaking violently. He scrambled to his feet and ran, blindly, slipping, gasping, until he burst back into the clearing by his cabin. He slammed the door shut behind him, locked it, and braced his back against it. Breath heaving. Cold sweat freezing to his skin. "I'm losing my mind," he whispered. Or something else has mine." The camera experiment. Lucas didn't sleep that night. He stayed at the kitchen table staring at the window where snow pressed against the sill. He needed proof. Something had mimicked him. Something that left duplicate footprints. Something that entered his cabin. Something that tried to warn him, or threaten him. At midnight, he set up cameras around the house. One aimed at the front door. One aimed at the back window. One pointed directly at his bed. Two outside beneath the porch. He tested each camera twice. They worked perfectly. By 1:37 a.m., Lucas forced himself to lie down. He stared at the ceiling. His heartbeat was a drum. By 2:14 a.m., he finally drifted. The cabin creaked. Snow slid off the roof. The wind rattled the window. Then, a soft thud. Lucas snapped awake. He checked the time. 2:14 a.m. exactly. A cold pressure pressed against the cabin walls, like weight shifting outside. Lucas didn't move. Didn't breathe. Another thud. Then footsteps inside the house. Soft. Controlled. Familiar. His footsteps. Lucas squeezed his eyes shut and pretended to sleep. A shape passed by the doorframe. Then another. The air felt different, colder, but charged. A whisper floated near his bed. "You weren't supposed to follow me." Lucas's heart hammered so loudly he thought the thing might hear it. After a minute that felt like an hour, the presence withdrew. The footsteps faded. Silence. Lucas remained frozen until dawn. Morning review. When sunlight finally broke through the blinds, Lucas grabbed his laptop and pulled footage from the bedroom camera first. His heart nearly stopped. At 2:14 a.m., the cabin door opened by itself. Snow drifted in. Then, Lucas Vale walked inside. But the real Lucas was still on the bed, on camera, sleeping in that exact moment. The duplicate Lucas glanced toward the bedroom door, as though deciding whether to enter. Instead, it walked past the camera's view, toward the hallway. Lucas fast-forwarded. 2:15 a.m. The duplicate stood in the living room, staring at the rug. 2:16. It adjusted something on the shelf. 2:17. It stood in the reflection of the window, but its body didn't appear in the glass. Lucas dropped the laptop. His pulse rattled in his chest. The other version of him wasn't trying to mimic him. It was living a separate routine. Returning at 2:14 every night. Moving things the real Lucas never touched. Following patterns he didn't recognize. Dana's journal echoed in his mind. Sometimes the version of you that stayed behind chooses to live differently. Lucas whispered to the empty room. He's not following me. I'm following him. He swallowed. But why did he warn me? Another line from Dana's notes burned into his memory. If your echo becomes aware of you, the split becomes unstable. Lucas closed the laptop. His breathing steadied. One thing had become painfully clear. The other him didn't want to be found. And Lucas had already crossed a line he was never meant to cross. Lucas spent the next day pretending everything was normal. He made coffee. He swept the porch. He checked the firewood. He tried writing 3 sentences for his new book and deleted all 3. But every time he stood still for more than a minute, he heard it. The faint dragging sound of his limp. His limp, repeating somewhere in the cabin, like the echo of a footfall that hadn't happened yet. It wasn't real. It wasn't physical. But it was there, in walls, in floors, in the grain of the wood. At noon, Lucas stood at the back window staring at the snow-covered forest. His breath fogged the glass. Then he noticed something wrong. His reflection wasn't aligned with his movement. He leaned left. The reflection leaned right. He inhaled sharply and stumbled back from the window. The reflection straightened, perfectly still, watching him. Then, without Lucas moving, his reflection lifted a hand and pointed toward the forest. Lucas backed away. Okay. Bad idea. No more windows. He pulled the blinds shut. The second footprint incident. By late afternoon the snowfall thickened, a heavy curtain of white blanketing everything. Lucas's cabin creaked under the weight. He felt trapped in a world shrinking by degrees. But then, a sound. Crunch. Crunch. Footsteps outside. He froze and turned toward the front window. Through a narrow slit in the blinds he saw them. 2 sets of footprints forming in the snow, side by side, heading toward his cabin. No bodies above the prints. Just the impressions forming, one after another, like invisible feet pressing down the fresh powder. Lucas backed away slowly. The footprints reached the porch. Stopped. Then turned around. And began walking back toward the forest. Lucas exhaled shakily. It was a warning. Or a message. Or maybe the other Lucas simply didn't want him coming outside. He paced the living room, hands shaking. What do you want? He whispered to the empty cabin. If you're me, why hide? Silence. His eyes drifted to Dana's journal again. He picked it up, flipping to the page marked with a folded corner. A second self appears only when the original timeline fractures from trauma. One version continues forward. The other stays anchored to the event. Anchored. The accident. The car. The river. Dana screaming his name in the dark water. He swallowed hard and shut the journal. No, he whispered. I didn't leave anyone behind. This is something else. But the second Lucas existed. And he was avoiding Lucas on purpose. Nightfall, 2:14 a.m. again. Lucas forced himself awake until midnight, pacing the cabin, occasionally peering into the forest through tiny gaps in the blinds. 1 a.m. Coffee. 1:40 a.m. Camera check. 2:10 a.m. Heart pounding. 2:14 a.m. Footsteps. Soft. Measured. Familiar. Lucas stared at the bedroom door as the shadow of a figure passed along the crack at its base. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. Thud. Something sat in his living room chair, the same creak of wood he'd heard earlier. Lucas's mouth went dry. Then the footsteps returned, slow and even, back toward the corridor. A whisper floated through the dark. "Don't try again." Lucas's heart nearly burst from his chest. He waited a full 5 minutes before rising from bed. He tiptoed to the living room doorway and peeked inside. Nothing. But something on the table had changed. Dana's journal was open. To a page Lucas didn't leave open. He stepped into the room, cautious. The page read, "If the Echo becomes independent, it will protect its timeline. It will remove anything that threatens collapse, even the original self." Lucas felt nauseous. The Echo wasn't afraid of him. It was afraid he'd break the balance. The footage reveals more. Lucas grabbed his laptop and loaded the camera footage again. The front door footage froze his blood. At 2:14 a.m. exactly, the doorknob turned. The door opened. Snowflakes drifted in. And then, Lucas walked in. Not the sleeping Lucas. Not a distorted echo. A full, physical version of him, same coat, same boots, same limp, except his eyes were lifeless and fixed straight ahead. The duplicate closed the door gently, then turned toward the living room. Lucas leaned closer to the screen, heart thudding. The camera captured the way the duplicate moved, controlled, intentional, scanning the room with unsettling familiarity. At one moment he paused by the bookshelf. He lifted Dana's journal. Then turned his head toward the bedroom camera, straight at the lens. The real Lucas gasped. The duplicate Lucas, at 2:15 a.m., looked into the camera and whispered something the mic barely caught. "Stop watching me." Lucas slammed the laptop shut. His whole body shook. He had crossed a boundary. He had watched the wrong version of himself. And the other self had noticed. Dana's research. Lucas opened the journal again, trying to calm his thoughts with logic or science or something that felt grounded. Dana's research wasn't supernatural, it was quantum, psychological, experimental. He found another section he hadn't read before. A temporal mirror forms where emotional trauma condenses memory and identity. The person may split into two timelines. One moves forward to life. One remains stuck in the moment of trauma, replaying it indefinitely. Lucas whispered. The accident. He forced himself to face it, something he hadn't done in 2 years. He saw it. The bridge's ice. The spin. The railing breaking. The car tumbling. Water filling the cabin. Dana's grip slipping from his hand. He had survived. Dana had not. And now, another version of him had emerged from that unresolved moment, trapped in a loop of guilt. Lucas rubbed his temples. But that didn't explain the physicality of the echo. The voice. The footprints. The warnings. Unless the echo wanted its own timeline. Its own existence. Unless the echo was trying to keep Lucas away from the place where the split originated. The bridge. The frozen river. The crash site. Lucas stood abruptly. He had to see it. He had to understand what the other Lucas was protecting. The bridge, and a third set of footprints. The next morning Lucas dressed in heavy gear, grabbed Dana's journal, and stepped outside. The cold hit like a slap. Fresh snow blanketed the ground. And there, leading away from the porch, were not 2, but 3 sets of footprints. Lucas's own prints from earlier remained. The Echo's prints, still firm and sharp. But now, a third set. Slightly smaller. Lighter steps. No limp. 2 parallel lines, walking beside the other Echo prints, like someone walking with the Echo. Lucas crouched, breath fogging. Who the hell is that? He felt a sharp pressure in his chest. The third set continued into the forest, beside the Echo's prints, as if they were walking together. Lucas followed quickly, his boots crunching loudly. Something inside him quaked, a fear that wasn't physical but emotional, deep, raw. The trail went far, much farther than the previous day. Then it stopped. At the edge of an old wooden bridge, half collapsed, spanning a frozen river. Lucas's breath caught. This was it. The site of the accident. The place where Dana died. And the place where, in Dana's research, identity fractures into an Echo. Lucas stepped carefully onto the worn planks. The ice groaned beneath. He looked down and saw something reflected in the river. Not himself. Not the trees. But 2 figures standing behind him. He spun around. The forest was empty. But the reflection remained. 2 shapes. One tall, Lucas's height. One shorter, a woman's height. Lucas whispered, voice cracking. Dana? The second figure in the ice reflection lifted its head slowly. Long hair. Familiar posture. Familiar warmth ghosted through Lucas's memory. His knees weakened. No. No, that's impossible. Dana is. The figure in the reflection raised a hand. And the Echo Lucas behind her rested a hand on her shoulder. Lucas stumbled back. He stared down at the impossible reflection. The Echo Lucas was with Dana. His Dana. Alive in the reflection. Lucas collapsed to his knees on the snow-covered bridge. His hands trembled uncontrollably. His breath came fast and shallow. For 2 years he had lived with the memory of losing Dana, of failing her. Now, in the mirrored ice below, another version of him stood beside her, alive, walking the forest with her. The reality crushed Lucas's chest. He whispered, "You didn't stay behind because of me. You stayed behind for her." The Echo hadn't been warning Lucas away for his safety. The Echo Lucas was protecting the last place he had Dana. A timeline where Dana never died. A version of the world frozen in memory, a loop the Echo refused to let go. The reflection Lucas held Dana's hand. Refused to move on. Refused to give her up. Lucas shuddered violently. He finally understood why the Echo had said, "Stop following me." He had followed the Echo to the one place the Echo could still have Dana. And by coming here, Lucas had threatened that fragile timeline. The Echo didn't want Lucas dead. The Echo wanted Lucas gone. Far from the bridge. Far from this place. Far from the timeline where Dana never drowned. Lucas stood shakily. "I get it," he whispered into the cold. "You're trying to keep her alive." The ice cracked softly. The reflection blurred. Then the Echo Lucas spoke from the darkness of the mirrored surface. "Leave." Lucas stepped backward. "Let me talk to her." The Echo's posture stiffened. "You had your chance." Lucas's chest twisted painfully. "No. Please. Let me leave. The ice beneath Lucas's boots splintered. He stumbled back to land. The reflections vanished. The forest fell silent. Lucas wiped his face with numb fingers. He understood now. The echo of himself wasn't trapping him. It was guarding a life Lucas had lost. A life Lucas had no right to reclaim. Slowly, painfully, Lucas turned away from the bridge. But as he walked back toward the cabin, he saw something that froze the breath in his lungs. In the snow beside the original 2 echo footprints was a new set. Small, light, barefoot. A woman's footprints. Dana's. Leading straight toward his cabin. The footprints outside Lucas's cabin shouldn't have been possible. Snow had fallen thick overnight, smoothing everything into a clean white sheet. No deer tracks, no wind streaks, no sign of movement. But right there, not 10 feet from his porch, small bare footprints broke the perfect snow. A woman's footprints. Dana's. Lucas stared at them for a full minute, unable to blink. They were unmistakably hers. Slightly inward toes. A faint arch. Small heel. The same way she walked across the hardwood floors in their old townhouse. A coldness spread through his chest, deeper than winter. No, he whispered. Dana is gone. I saw. He couldn't finish the sentence. He followed the line of prints with his eyes. They approached from the forest, stopped at the porch steps, circled once, and then vanished. They didn't go back into the woods. They didn't go to the window. They simply ended, abruptly, like someone had walked up to the cabin and then stepped out of the world. Lucas's throat tightened. This isn't real, he whispered. It can't be real. But the footprints were not illusions. They compressed the snow. They crystallized edges. They held the weight of a human body. And worst of all, they looked fresh. Less than an hour old. The echo self had always been physical. But Dana had died. Unless in the echo timeline she hadn't. Unless the echo Lucas had pulled her out of the river somehow, and the fracture had preserved her in that alternate loop. Unless she was crossing through that fracture now. Lucas kneeled, touching the snow where her last footprint ended. His glove pressed onto the indentation, still crisp, still cold. A thought rose, unbidden. If Dana is walking here, then the split is weakening. He stood up, heart pounding. He knew what came next in Dana's research. He flipped the journal open to a page he'd always skipped, one with darker ink, smudged in places as though written in a hurry. If the echo timeline gains enough stability, the 2 selves may attempt to merge. But only one version of a person can exist in the present world. Lucas's eyes widened. Only one. If Dana was walking here, then the universe would demand one version of Dana to remain. The other would be erased. A tremor ran through Lucas's entire body. No, that can't be happening. He stood abruptly and scanned the tree line. Dana, he called out. Dana! If you're here, please. The forest swallowed his voice. No answer. The second night's visitor. That night, Lucas didn't sleep. He didn't sit. He barely breathed. He stared at the window for hours, waiting for some movement in the dark forest, a shadow, a whisper, a hint of her. When 2:14 a.m. approached, the hairs on his arms rose involuntarily. The cabin shifted. The temperature dropped. A familiar footstep echoed in the living room. Lucas froze. Then, tap, tap, tap. 3 soft knocks at the front door. Lucas's heart shot into his throat. The echo never knocked. It came inside without sound. Which meant he walked to the door slowly, each step careful. He pressed his palm against the wood. "Dana," he whispered through the door. "Is that you?" Silence. He swallowed. "If it's you, please say something." A soft breath on the other side. Barely audible. Then, in a voice that cracked like something learning to speak again. "Cass." Lucas stumbled backward, tears stinging his eyes. It was her voice. Soft. Wavering. Real. He lunged forward and threw open the door. No one was there. Only falling snow. Lucas stepped outside, breath fogging, scanning the darkness. "Dana." He walked off the porch, turning frantically from side to side. That's when he saw it. A single barefoot footprint forming in the snow right in front of him. Not already existing, forming, pressed down by an invisible foot. Then another. And another. Footsteps walking backward into the woods, slowly, deliberately. "Dana, wait!" Lucas shouted, running toward the prints. But the prints stopped. Lucas fell to his knees beside them, hyperventilating. A shape flickered in the corner of his eye, faint, like a reflection on broken water. He turned his head. Dana stood between 2 pine trees. Barefoot. Hair hanging loose. Face pale and soft and heartbreakingly familiar. Lucas gasped. "Dana." She lifted a hand, trembling, touching the air as if feeling for a barrier. Her lips moved. Lucas leaned forward. "What? What are you saying?" A whisper passed through the cold. "He'll hurt you." Lucas stiffened. "Who?" The echo. Dana looked behind her fearfully, as though someone stood just out of Lucas's view. Then she locked eyes with him. "Don't follow." The trees around her distorted, like heat shimmer, but cold, rippling the outline of her body. "Dana!" Lucas screamed. She stepped backward and faded into the distortion. And vanished. Lucas fell forward onto his hands, breath tearing out of him. She had warned him. Just like the echo. But why? What was the echo so terrified of him discovering? The journal's final warning. Back inside, Lucas clutched Dana's journal like a lifeline. He turned to the final chapter, one Dana had marked with a black tab he'd never dared open before. The header read, "The lingering self, when echoes refuse to end." His eyes raced down the paragraphs. If the echo's grief is stronger than the original's acceptance, the echo becomes dominant. It will preserve its timeline by eliminating contradictions. Lucas whispered. Eliminating contradictions. A contradiction like the original Lucas knowing about the echo timeline. A contradiction like 2 Danas converging on one reality. A contradiction like Lucas trying to reclaim the Dana who wasn't his. Another note on the page made his blood freeze. The echo will not kill the original unless forced. But it will replace him. Replace. Erase one timeline. Right over the other. Lucas shut the journal. This is why he's warning me away. He wants to keep Dana. even if that means removing me. He felt anger rise, sharp, sudden, terrifying. She's mine too, Lucas whispered. Then immediately regretted the possessive tone. Dana was not property. She was a person. And one version of her was suffering in a fractured timeline because Lucas had survived while she drowned. He stood. I need to see her again. I need to talk to her. He grabbed his coat, grabbed a lantern, and stepped outside. But he didn't notice the faint reflection in the window behind him. A second Lucas. Staring. Not moving. Not blinking. Watching him leave. Return to the bridge. Lucas trekked through the forest, snow crunching underfoot, breath clouding the air. The world seemed off, like the edges of reality blurred. Trees leaned slightly wrong. Shadows stretched too far. The air carried a low hum, like electricity under ice. When he finally reached the bridge again, he stopped dead. Someone was standing on it. A man. Facing away. Shoulders hunched. Hands gripping the railing. Lucas whispered. Me. The echo. Lucas turned his head slightly, just enough that Lucas saw his profile, identical except for one detail. His eyes. The echo's eyes were filled with exhaustion, grief, and a terrifying resolve. Without turning fully around, the echo spoke. You weren't supposed to see her. Lucas stepped forward. Why not? She's my wife. The echo's grip tightened on the wood. She's mine now. Lucas's breath caught. No, he whispered. She's not yours, you're the version trapped in the moment she died. At that, the echo turned. Fully. His face was identical. His expression was not. He looked older. More weathered. Deeply wounded. You left me there, the echo said quietly. You let me drown with her. Lucas stepped back. I didn't abandon you. I didn't choose to survive over you. But you did survive. Lucas's throat tightened. The echo walked closer, slow and deliberate. I stayed in that cold water. I stayed when you escaped. I stayed when the world moved on. I stayed with her. I saved her. Lucas whispered. You didn't save her. You froze her in a memory. The echo's face contorted, pain, then rage. It's the only timeline where she exists. The ice beneath the bridge cracked loudly. Lucas flinched, but held his ground. You can't keep her like this, he said. She's stuck between worlds. Better than gone. Lucas shook his head. She's suffering. I saw it. The echo's jaw twitched. He took another slow step toward Lucas. Leave. Lucas refused. He stepped closer too. I want to talk to her. A deep silence fell. Then the echo spoke, voice barely above breath. If you take one more step, I will erase you. Lucas swallowed. I'm not afraid of you. The echo's eyes darkened. Good. The environment around them shifted. Snow fell upward. Trees stretched taller. Light bent sideways. The timeline was destabilizing. The fracture was widening. And from the distortion behind the echo, Dana stepped out. Barefoot. Shivering. Eyes wide. She whispered. Lucas, please, run. But Lucas turned to her, tears building. Dana. I need to talk to you. The echo moved. Fast. Too fast. His hand clamped around Lucas's throat, cold as river water. Lucas gasped, grabbing instinctively at the Echo's arm. The Echo leaned close, whispering into his ear. "Only one of us gets to keep her." The world shook. Reality tore. The bridge groaned. And Lucas was dragged toward the edge. Toward the fracture in time. Toward the timeline where Dana still lived. But only one Lucas could remain there. Lucas clawed at the Echo's wrist, the cold sinking into his bones like frostbite. The air vibrated around them, not sound, but pressure, as if the world were tightening in on itself. Snow swirled upward, defying gravity. The wooden boards of the bridge groaned beneath them, bending in an unnatural arc. The Echo leaned close, lips almost brushing Lucas's ear. "You never should have come back here." Lucas gasped for breath. "You can't keep her." The Echo squeezed harder, making Lucas's vision blur. "I already have." But then, a voice, trembling and terrified. "Stop!" Dana stood at the fracture's edge, bare feet red from the cold, eyes wide with pain. The Echo's grip faltered just slightly. Lucas yanked backward, staggering free. He fell hard onto the boards, coughing violently. Dana took one step toward him. The Echo moved instantly, blocking her with an arm. "Stay behind me." Dana shook her head, voice cracking. "I can't keep doing this." "You can't keep doing this." The Echo's jaw clenched. "I saved you." Dana's expression collapsed into grief. "You didn't save me. You trapped me. I've been stuck, in that night, for so long." A tremor spread across the fracture. The forest bent inward, like the trees themselves were being pulled toward the tear in reality. Dana stepped back from the Echo, shaking. "You won't let me go." The Echo's voice cracked like ice fracturing. "Because you die if I do." Lucas slowly rose to his feet. Dana looked between both versions of him, the real Lucas, trembling, bruised, and the Echo Lucas, filled with desperation, grief, and madness. She whispered, "Both of you need to let me go." The Echo whirled toward her, horrified. "No! I won't lose you again." Dana backed away. "You already did." A cold wind slammed across the bridge, ripping snow from the ground. The fracture widened, the air shimmered violently, like reality was being peeled open by invisible hands. Lucas took a step toward her. The Echo stepped in front of him. "No. She stays with me." Lucas met the Echo's eyes, his own voice steady for the first time. "She's not yours. She's not mine. She's not a memory. She's a person." Dana inhaled sharply, tears filling her eyes. The Echo trembled. "I died with her." Lucas shook his head. "No, you froze yourself in grief. You froze her in the past. But she's been calling out. I heard her. She's suffering." Dana nodded weakly. "I hear everything," she whispered. "Every scream. Every moment. Every freezing second. It never stops." Lucas felt his stomach twist. She wasn't trapped as Dana. She was trapped as a memory of dying. The Echo's voice cracked through the frozen wind. "If I let go, she disappears from every world." Lucas breathed the hardest truth he'd ever spoken. "Then let her be free." The Echo stared at him, the same eyes, but filled with unbearable sorrow. "No," he whispered. "I'd rather the world break than lose her again." The fight for existence. The fracture split wider with a deafening crack. The forest dimmed. Snow lifted off the ground, suspended in midair. Shadows stretched impossibly long. Dana ran toward Lucas, reaching for him. The echo lunged at her. Lucas intercepted him. They collided violently, rolling across the bridge. The boards cracked beneath their combined weight. The echo punched Lucas hard across the face, sending a jolt of pain through his jaw. You left her. Another punch. You swam away and left her. Lucas blocked the third strike and shoved the echo backward. I didn't choose to survive, he shouted. I woke up on the riverbank. I tried to save her. You should have drowned with us. The echo lifted Lucas and slammed him down, wood splintering beneath them. Lucas gasped, vision flickering. But then, Dana stepped between them. Both Lucases froze. Her voice broke. Please stop hurting each other. You're the same man. You both loved me. But I can't stay with either of you. The echo staggered back. No, you don't mean that. Dana touched his cheek gently, so gently that even the wind seemed to quiet. I do. The echo shook his head violently, eyes filling with panic. I built a world for you. Dana whispered. You built a cage. The echo's face contorted. Then he screamed, a guttural, broken sound that shook the air. The fracture exploded outward. The collapse of two timelines. Everything around them convulsed. Trees folded inward like paper. Snow dissolved into streams of light. The bridge planks lifted and twisted like ribbons. Dana stumbled back, caught in the pull of the fracture. Lucas leaped forward, grabbing her hand. The echo grabbed her other hand. All three were locked in a triangle of collapsing reality. Dana screamed, a sound filled with pain that echoed across both timelines. Let me go. Lucas tightened his grip. So I can lose you again? Dana cried. Lucas, please. The echo pulled harder. Stay with me. You belong with me. Dana's body was being torn between them, literally splitting with the pull of opposing realities. Time slowed. Sound muffled. The world dimmed. Dana looked directly into Lucas's eyes. I can't live in this fracture. I can't live as a memory. I want peace. Lucas shook his head desperately. Dana. Let me go, she whispered. Both of you. Lucas felt something break inside him. The echo's grip tightened desperately. No. I can't lose you. Dana's voice grew calm with acceptance. You already did. She pulled both hands free and stepped backward into the fracture. Her body dissolved like snow caught in sun. Gone. Silent. Weightless. Erased. Both Lucases stood frozen in horror. The fracture screamed, a sound like metal twisting underwater, then snapped shut instantly. The world lurched. The bridge slammed back into normal shape. The sky brightened. The snow fell downward again. Dana was gone. For good. When two selves cannot coexist. Lucas stumbled to his knees. The echo stood motionless, staring at the space where Dana vanished. His face was blank, hollowed, emptied of all meaning. Lucas whispered, voice shattered. She wanted peace. The echo didn't move. She's free now. The echo slowly lifted his head. His eyes were dead. You took her from me. Lucas stood shakily. No. She chose. The echo's voice cut through him like a blade. Now I'll take everything from you. The wind howled. Snow whipped around in a vortex. The echo stepped forward, shadows bending around him. Lucas backed away. But the fracture's remnants still clung to the air. The echo's timeline was unstable and fading. He lunged at Lucas, grabbing him by the coat. Lucas struggled, gasping. Stop! The echo's skin began cracking, fissures of light splitting across him. You live, the echo growled. I fade. Lucas saw the truth. The echo wasn't trying to kill him. He was trying to replace him. Take his place entirely. Erase the original timeline. Erase the living Lucas. Rewrite reality so he was the only version left. No! Lucas shouted, trying to break free. But the echo's body glowed brighter, fracturing further. Dana had been the anchor. Without her, the echo's existence was destabilizing, collapsing like a dying star. The echo screamed, voice splitting in two. I won't go back into nothing. Lucas kicked backward, freeing himself. The echo's body cracked again, a shimmering fissure across his face. Light poured out. The echo staggered, screaming in agony. Reality pulled at him. He was being erased. Lucas watched in horror. He wanted to help. He wanted to reach out. But he knew. This was the only ending that made sense. The echo reached toward Lucas, mouth twisted in grief and hatred. Please. Lucas whispered. I'm sorry. The echo shattered. His entire body burst into particles of freezing light, like snow caught in a sunbeam. Then he was gone. Absolutely gone. The bridge fell silent. The forest exhaled. Lucas sank to his knees and wept until dawn. Epilogue, the footprints that stopped. 2 weeks later, Lucas packed the last of his belongings into his truck. The cabin stood quiet, peaceful, ordinary, like none of it had ever happened. No more twin footprints in the snow. No more knocks at 2:14 a.m. No more shadow selves. No more glimpses of Dana. Just silence. He walked to the porch one last time. Snow was falling gently. No prints but his own. Lucas whispered into the cold air. I loved you. Both of you. I hope you're free now. He turned to leave. But before he opened the truck door, a faint whisper reached him, soft as drifting snow. Goodbye, Lucas. He froze. Then he smiled, small, heartbreaking, and stepped into the truck. As he drove away down the mountain road, the snow behind him remained perfectly smooth. No echoes. No fractures. No other footsteps following him. For the first time in years, he was alone. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel afraid of that. Have a nice day. Thank you for watching.